Hello everyone, thank you for joining me once again. Today we're going to talk about one of the most famous characters in Jewish mysticism, if not the most famous one. Today we're going to talk about Lilith. So when it comes to tell the story of Lilith, we are required to build some kind of a puzzle with many tiny different pieces. She's one of the most ancient characters in mythologies that draws inspiration from characters that existed in mythologies thousands of years ago, maybe even 10,000 years ago. There are a lot of videos and articles and books out there of a lot of people who study and research Lilith. And when you want to create some kind of a grand picture of who she is, what this character stands for, you need to do a very delicate work of puzzling, of taking different pieces and trying to combine them into some kind of a storyline that we can follow. Why is this complicated? Because the origins of Lilith are probably in Mesopotamia. Now, Mesopotamia is not only one state or ancient country. Mesopotamia is actually the name of the area, which is today modern Iraq mainly, a little bit of Syria. And it was an ancient area already 2,000 years ago. Okay? And you have different states and cultures that are arising and vanishing into history in this area, such as the Assyrians and the Sumerians and Babylonians and Akkadians. And sometimes those states exist one next to each other, sometimes they fight. Sometimes there is one entity and another one appears there only thousands of years later. And the characters or the figures of Lilith or her ancient inspirations are migrating through those cultures, and a lot of people have a lot of characters and stories that are probably more ancient even than writing. When people sat around the fires and told stories, they probably told stories of some kind of an ancient character that one day will be the Lilith that we know today. So what I'm going to try to do is to create this picture that we can observe and see how Lilith is turning into the Lilith that we know. And our starting point is definitely the area of Mesopotamia. In Mesopotamia, you will probably find Lilith as an ancient character that in its very beginning is connected to ancient deities such as fertility goddesses. They're very primordial. Now, sometimes she is the daughter of a fertility goddess or a part of a group of messengers that carry the word of this goddess. At least this is how I understand it from reading articles, researches, and mythologies that I came across. In the Mesopotamian mythology, I'm going to refer it as Mesopotamian because if we're going to talk about each culture in separate, we're going to sit here for hours. One of the names of a fertility goddess in those areas is Belt Eli. Belt Eli has a group of messengers that are sometimes being called Lilu. And they're messengers that are connected either to fog or mist, sometimes to the night, sometimes even to the wind or storms. So from the beginning, when we find messengers that has similar sound to the name of Lilith, they are already messengers that are dwelling in the in-betweens, the morning mist between night and dawn. Sometimes when the weather is changing and the wind is coming before the storm. Sometimes they come at night during your dreams. So we can already place the origins of the character in something which is very mysterious, connected maybe to the darkness. Remember, this is the ancient world, no electricity. The things that you see most brightly are the moon and the stars. And they carry her message, and sometimes, maybe in later years or maybe from the beginning, they're considered to be demons. But as we said, in the ancient world, demons are not necessarily bad or good. I mean, they are demons, they are being referred to as demons, but it doesn't mean that they are not divine. They can totally be the children of the gods and the goddesses and be demons, usually, as we said, because they have a free spirit and they tend to rebel against their parents. As for example, if you heard of Gilgamesh, a very famous figure in these mythologies, it is being said that his father was a Lilith demon. Another possible origin of Lilith connects her to the goddesses of love and war in those areas. Inanna, that will later on become Ishtar. She takes from them things that we know will be some of her characteristics in Jewish mysticism and in other cultures, such as great beauty, sexuality, temptation, but also the fact that she can become a very fierce warrior who lead armies, because those goddesses were goddesses of love, beauty, and sexuality, but also of war and battles. And later on, we'll see that she leads armies and warriors into battle. There is a text that talks about Ishtar, the rising hand of Ishtar or Inanna, and we saw in previous goddesses that the touch of the hand of the goddesses is something miraculous. It could heal you, it could also win battles for you, but it's a motif we know of goddesses that are raising their hands to do something. And then in this text, right after that, they talk about a character called Lilith or Lilitu. But I will say that in the world of the academic research, they do not necessarily offer this kind of symbiotic relations between the two characters, and it is not exactly understood why Lilith is appearing in those texts. So maybe we will find something new that we haven't been able to prove, and maybe we'll be just left guessing. But she is definitely taking some of those characteristics into her future character. Now, another thing that you can see is that you found, so for example, the Brunei relief, which is in the British Museum, and there you see in this archaeological artifact, you see a goddess with wings and the legs of a bird, a hunting bird with owls, standing there. And in the past they used to say that this character is definitely Lilith. She was also painted in red, a color which is connected either to war or to passion and to Lilith. Today some researchers say that this might be Inanna, and that this figurine was found in other places in the same depiction, so it could also be Inanna, and I think today most of the researchers agree on that. But you can already start and seeing the connection to the way that we view her with wings, and the connection to owls and to hunting birds. And she is definitely a creature of the night. Another story that connects her to Inanna, but actually as someone that Inanna is fighting off, that Inanna has a very special tree. Inanna plants a very special tree that is sacred to her in a garden. She later on wants this tree to be the thing that she will make her throne out of. And in this tree she has a serpent, a snake in the bottom, and a Lilith in the tree. And Gilgamesh is coming and he is helping her to fight them off, which is very interesting because again we're seeing goddess, tree, birds, serpent. We see all of those symbols, and we also see that Lilith is starting to being connected with hunting birds, with very wild birds. Another possible deity which is inspiring Lilith is a demoness called Lamashtu. She was part of a group of demonesses that we think today are being referred to as Dimigi. It was a group of goddesses that were very powerful, and because they didn't agree exactly to do what the gods and goddesses are telling them to do and did whatever they wanted to, they're considered demonesses, although many of them were the daughters of Enki, the sky god. She was considered to be very dangerous. People respected her and they feared her so much that if they thought there's a chance that she might be somewhere near you, they would actually use amulets with other demons to show her that they have a way to fight her off. But her character is also very complicated. Why? In every culture, every ancient culture, we have a story of a great flood that happened to humanity. And one of the stories of the flood in Mesopotamian mythology, we are reading a conversation between the gods and the goddesses after the flood. And Belt Ili, in one of her forms, the goddess of fertility, is crying for her creation and the people that she considered to be her children. One of the reasons for the flood in this story is the fact that there were too many people in the world. And it was almost an ecological problem. And it's interesting how we find this similar in something that we're talking about today. And they tell her, okay, so if we want the flood not to happen again, let's create this goddess. We know that she's going to be a rebel goddess, that she will be in charge of making sure that the number of the people in the world would make sense. So her character all to itself is very complicated, but Lilith is taking those characteristics of being dangerous and that people fear her into her future characters. Another thing that I came across many years in a very dusty book, in a very dusty library, and obviously I didn't keep the reference, which is a mistake. Be good students. Always write where it is. I saw a very, very, very ancient reference to her as a midwife that is actually accompanying goddesses of love and fertility when women are giving birth. Now, I forgot about it for a while, and then I came across a very ancient culture called the Mandaeans. I hope I'm saying it right. If not, please do correct me. They're very ancient religion, which is located mainly in Iraq and a little bit in Iran, and today they're also spread around the world. Their cultures and beliefs are actually have a lot of Gnostic principles, which sing everything with dual meaning. You have good and bad, light and darkness, almost yin and yang. Sometimes Gnostics even believe that the world was created by a good God and there's a lesser God running it, and you always want to make sure that you're coming close to the real God. So it is a very ancient culture and belief with a lot of interpretations. But the Mandaeans, they have a very holy book called Ginzaraba. They have a lot of stories about a world of light and a world of darkness. And in the world of darkness, you have many Lilith, not just one. And they are those feminine creatures of the world of darkness. But in one of the stories, the main Lilith, the Lilith, she is the daughter of the king and the queen of this world. She is actually becoming the wife. She gets married to a creature of light from the royal family of the world of light. And they have a son. And their son is actually everything. He is both light and darkness. And he is a very beloved character. And he is doing this journey, he's taking a journey, he's traveling between villages and people, and he meets a lot of people that are very afraid of Lilith, his mother. And he tells them that instead of fighting her off, they need to understand that she is here to help. She is actually sitting on the beds of women giving birth, almost as this midwife that we talked about, and she is assisting women when they give birth, and she's comforting them through the process to make the birth successful. This is super interesting. We don't even know those stories in later monotheistic beliefs, and if you don't go and dig them up, you wouldn't find them anywhere. It proves how complicated the ancient world was. We also know of some figures in near mythologies that might be inspired by her, or that they are different interpretations of her. We have Lamia in the Greek mythology, a woman that is sometimes being depicted as half woman, half snake, and she is very seductive and dangerous. We know of characters in Egypt. We do know in some of the mythologies about early women that are half bird, half women, and they actually take care of very young children. They keep them safe. So even in very ancient mythologies, thousands of years ago, those characters are already going through a lot of transformations. In Canaan and in Phoenicia, I do not know of a character which is the parallel one to Lilith in Mesopotamia, or to one of the characters that will be a future inspiration of her. I know that some people today are tending to identify her with Asherah, the goddess of fertility. I have to admit I'm not entirely sure what they're basing it on, because if Asherah is the parallel of any character, is of Belt Ili, the goddess of fertility, and then Lilith is the daughter, I think that she has some similarities to Anat, the goddess of war, but this is just something that I find when I read the stories, and I think they have some similarities. It's just my opinion. It's up to you if it makes sense to you or not. So what is happening in Jewish mysticism, and how from those writings Lilith is going through all the other cultures?